of Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com. At Blindster, we offer custom-made faux wood and real wood blinds and shutters, cellular shades, Roman shades, bamboo shades, exterior shades, and more, all at factory direct prices. Don't pay too much for new blinds. Go to Blindster.com.
Is this the Tavis?
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Colin Kaepernick still wants to play in the NFL. In an interview with Sky Sports, a network based in London, the celebrated and vilified quarterback said he can still help a team win a championship. Kaepernick, now 36, hasn't played in 7 years. He was essentially blackballed by the NFL for kneeling during the national anthem in 2016 to protest social injustices in America. New Chargers coach Jim Harbaugh is the one NFL coach who might be willing to talk to his owner about giving Kaepernick a chance. Chargers owner Dean Spanos would have the final say. When Harbaugh was coaching the 49ers, Kaepernick was his starting quarterback for 2 seasons. Kaepernick led the 49ers to the Super Bowl in 2013 and the NFC title game in 2014. Harbaugh and Kaepernick have kept in touch. Last year, Harbaugh invited Kaepernick to the University of Michigan spring game and named him an honorary captain. Stay tuned on this situation. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 invites you to join us for a book party celebrating The Covenant with Black America 20 years later. Almost 2 decades ago, the Covenant book, compiled and edited by Tavis Smiley, climbed to #1 on the New York Times bestsellers list and stayed there for weeks. The first book by a black-owned publisher to achieve such a feat. The urgency of the issues that matter most to black fellow citizens has only intensified, especially in this critical election year. On Wednesday evening, August 14th, 6 to 9 p.m., come meet Tavis Smiley alongside Covenant contributors including Cornel West, Connie Rice, Mark Ridley Thomas, Elisa Orduna, Tyrone Howard, and Melina Abdullah as they sign copies of The Covenant with Black America 20 years later. You can purchase your books on site and get them autographed. That's Wednesday evening, August 14th, 6 to 9 p.m. in the city of Los Angeles. Admission is free, but you must register at KBLA1580.com. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
Live from historic Leimert Park in Los Angeles, California, I'm Tavis Smiley, and I'm so glad to see you and me back in stride again. Before we get started with today's show, let me invite you to follow me on Facebook and Instagram at The Real Tavis Smiley and get updates on X, that's formerly Twitter, at Tavis Smiley. By the way, should you miss any part of today's program or want to catch up on previous shows, you can always visit thetavissmileyshow.com. That's thetavissmileyshow.com, or wherever you get your podcast, and listen to the Tavis Smiley podcast version of this live program at your leisure. Another great show on tap for you today in our second hour.
When you're overseas, people don't look at you like a guitar player or a cab driver. You're an American. I never thought of myself as an American. I'm from New Jersey.
He was a great performer, great songwriter, great producer.
I love his enthusiasm and encyclopedic knowledge of music.
He's a businessman. He's a philanthropist. He really is a Renaissance man.
I'm losing my balls over here. Miami Steve was a character that I was playing in the E Street Band. The Dean Martin in a rock and roll Rat Pack.
We were so close, I just wanted him near me. He just became my rock and roll brother instantly, you know? But he did need to take his shot.
15 years, we finally made it. And I quit the night before payday. I went from artist to activist.
I married this fun rock and roll guy, and all of a sudden, he's in South Africa.
Steve got together different genres of music.
The amount of artists that were involved.
Rockers, rappers, R&B stars.
Stephen understood rock and roll owed a debt to the continent of Africa.
There's this guy who was so well-read and so politically astute, but dressed like a dervish or a pirate. He's nothing less than a revolutionary.
But I was spiritually exhausted. I said what I wanted to say, and no record company wanted to sign me anymore. So I walked my dog for 7 years. I wanted to be very different, as different as I could be, thinking I'm never going back to music again. You know.
Stephen, the second act, it's amazing. All of a sudden, he's in television, radio. He's building a record label.
Rock and roll kept him alive. And I really do believe it's his religion.
One of the great horses in rock and roll, and one of the great horses for Justice Little Stephen.
Steve's a true believer.
There's something about rock that's unique in the way it communicates emotion, inspiration, and motivation. This is what it's all about.
Stephen Van Zandt, legendary guitarist, bandmate, and beloved brother of the boss, Bruce Springsteen, joins us in hour 2 to talk about the HBO documentary Stephen Van Zandt, Disciple. You might recall it was Stephen who helped organize the music industry against South African apartheid. We will talk about why he believes that artists should use their voices not just to entertain, but indeed to empower. Stephen Van Zandt on his HBO documentary today in our second hour. In our third hour, cinema professor and filmmaker Jaquil Constant on the 9th Annual Haiti International Film Festival, which kicks off this weekend. But in this first hour, let's talk politics with Clara Jeffrey, editor-in-chief at Mother Jones and the Center for Investigative Reporting, also recipient of a PEN America Award for editing. I am pleased to welcome Clara Jeffrey to this program. Clara, how are you today?
Tavis, thank you so much for having me on your show. So good to talk to you.
It is my great honor to have you on. Thank you for the time. A whole lot to talk about today. Let me jump right in and make the most of the time that we have here, Clara. I think I want to start with this. Yesterday, we started our program in conversation with a guy named Don Samuels. Don Samuels, as you know, was yesterday running against Ilhan Omar, and there was all all kind of commentary, and people were watching Minnesota, specifically Minneapolis, to see if a third member of the squad would go down. They took out Jamal Bowman in New York City. They took out Cori Bush in St. Louis. And Don Samuels assured us yesterday that he thought he had a good chance to take out, he didn't put it this way, Ilhan Omar in Minnesota. Well, as it turns out, she survived. She is a vocal critic of Israel, as we talked about yesterday, a strong supporter of the Palestinian people, a member of the squad, and yet she won her primary. Of course, she had a whole lot of money, but she won her primary. The irony of it is that she wins her primary on the same day that the U.S. approves another $20 billion in weapons sales to Israel as the threat of a wider war looms. How's that for irony, Clara?
Yeah, it's a really interesting upshot of that race. And the fact that I think is really interesting is that AIPAC, which ran big ad campaigns against both Cori Bush and Jamal Bowman, decided to stay out of this race, even though she is, probably certainly one of the most critical members of Congress against Israel and its policies in Gaza. So I think that she also just has a firmer and longer standing relationship with her district. Bowman's boundaries had changed. Cori Bush had only been in there for a while. So maybe part of this is they didn't have some support locally as much as she did. But I think also AIPAC must have just taken a look at her and her race and decided this wasn't the place to spend their money.
Yep, we saw yesterday in some research regarding Don Samuels' campaign that he did not take AIPAC money. He made that clear in our conversation. He had like 1.6 million. She had like 6 million. So she had a lot more money, obviously. But he did take about 350 grand from an AIPAC affiliated PAC, but no money directly from AIPAC. So to your point, they spent a lot of money, millions of dollars in these other races to beat Bowman and to beat Cori Bush. To your point, they decided for some reason not to invest so much in the Ilhan Omar race, and that may be one of the reasons why she pulled this out. Who knows? But Don Samuels did not pull off the upset yesterday. Ilhan Omar, again, vocal critic of Israel, strong supporter of Palestine and the Palestinian people, member of the squad, does not end up like Cori Bush, does not end up like Jamal Bowman. She wins her race yesterday in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Just getting started. More to talk about regarding that particular storyline, but a great deal more to cover in this hour with Clara Jeffrey of Mother Jones. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Interrogating and unpacking. That's what we do around here. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Make a move into a home of your own. With City National Bank's Ladder Up Home Loan Grant, you could receive up to $20,000 that you never need to pay back. Use it toward your down payment, save on closing costs, or to buy down your mortgage rate. Find out more at cnb.com/ladderuphome. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Property must be in a qualifying market in California, New York, or New Jersey. Additional terms and conditions apply. Not all applicants will qualify. Terms are subject to change without notice. City National Bank is an equal housing lender. Member FDIC. NMLS number 536994.
Our daughter Jessie loves playing detective.
But since we discovered she has sensitive skin, we've been playing detective too.
We thought the problem was our puppy.
But it was actually our old detergent. So we switched to Tide Free and Gentle.
Tide Free and Gentle has no dyes or perfumes, so it's gentle on her skin.
If it's gotta be clean, it's gotta be Tide Free and Gentle. This back-to-school season, Tide and Downy are giving back with $1.5 million in scholarships. Enter to win. No purchase necessary. US/DC 17+. End September 30th. Rules. Tide.com/scholarship/official rules.
Why choose a Sleep Number smart bed?
Can I make my side softer?
Can I make my side firmer whenever I want?
Can we sleep cooler?
Sleep Number does that. Cools up to 8 times faster and lets you choose your ideal comfort on either side. 94% of Sleep Number smart sleepers report better sleep. J.D. Power ranks Sleep Number #1 in customer satisfaction with mattresses purchased in-store. And now, during our biggest sale of the year, save 50% on the Sleep Number limited edition smart bed. Limited time. For J.D. Power 2023 award information, visit jdpower.com/awards. To find a store near you, visit sleepnumber.com.
Texting enrolls you into recurring automated text messages. Consent not required to purchase. Message and data rates may apply.
Hey, Dan, how you doing? Haven't seen you around the gym for a while.
Yeah, I've really fallen off. Since I turned 40, I just don't get the results I used to get.
Could be lower testosterone.
Lower T?
Yeah, I went through it a while back. Once you hit 40, your body has less free testosterone. I got Nugenix Total T, and it's made a huge difference for me.
I've seen that ad on TV. Is it for real?
Oh, yeah. The key ingredient is something called Tesnor, which helps boost free and total testosterone levels to help you trim up and stay lean.
And it's made a difference for you?
Man, I feel like I'm in my 20s again. At work, in the gym, and in the bedroom.
Are they still giving out complimentary bottles for people to try it for themselves?
Yeah, you just need to send them a text.
Text LION to 42424 right now for your complimentary bottle of Nugenix Total T, the #1 selling testosterone booster at GNC. Plus, text now and we'll include a bottle of Nugenix Thermo, our most powerful fat incinerator ever, to help you get back into shape fast, absolutely free. Text LION to 42424. That's LION to 42424.
Let's get back to more of this rich dialogue with Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Clara Jeffrey, who's the editor-in-chief of Mother Jones and the Center for Investigative Reporting. Pleased to have her on this program. We were talking, Clara, about Ilhan Omar in Minneapolis and her pulling off this race yesterday. Again, the nation was watching to see if another squad member might find themselves in trouble, but she handled Mr. Samuels rather handily, and so that is what it is. The other piece that I raised in connection to that is the irony of her winning her race yesterday on the same day that the U.S. approved another $20 billion in weapons sales to Israel. As I said, as threat of this wider war looms. Let's talk about that piece in particular. And there are any number of ways to slice it, but let me just start with a broad question. Here we are once again with the U.S. approving weapons sales to Israel. I asked Don Samuels about that yesterday and what his point of view was on that. We know what Ilhan Omar's point of view is on that. But what say you and Mother Jones about another $20 billion in weapons sales to Israel?
Yeah, I mean these things, even if there was a movement to stop this in Congress or in the administration, it's sort of like turning an iceberg around a little bit, like these weapons won't really arrive in Israel for a year or so, but the signal that it sends of ongoing support definitely, infuriates people who are rightfully very upset about the atrocities happening in Gaza.
What is Mother Jones? We have an hour here, so you can stretch out if you want to, Clara. What has Mother Jones been saying about this particular issue, these weapon sales to Israel?
Well, I think that one of the things that we've been looking at is, how it affects domestic politics at home. And certainly there is, I think one of the really interesting things that the nation is going to confront right now is how can Kamala Harris signal, if she indeed wants to, a difference with the Biden administration. It's a tricky spot for her. Obviously, she can't really undercut the person she's serving with. At the same time, she certainly has signaled that she has less tolerance for the sort of politics of Bibi Netanyahu and a great deal more empathy for the plight of the Palestinian people. So it's a really tricky political tightrope she's on right now. She can't go against, essentially her boss and the current policy of the administration in which she serves. And yet, obviously, there are many on the left who would like to see more signals about what she's going to do. So it's a fascinating moment, frankly.
When you watch her, are there things that you are seeing or hearing that give you reason to believe, to your point, that she won't necessarily radically depart from what the Biden-Harris team has done so far? But what are you watching? What are you seeing that gives you reason to believe that there's a pivot coming, period, or at all?
Well, I think two things. I mean, first of all, I think from the beginning, she has just in her language and talking about the war, has from the jump been quicker and more forceful to signal that she really is horrified by what's happening in Gaza and personally sympathetic to the plight of the Palestinian people in a way that Biden just wasn't doing. And I think it's also, frankly, it's generational. I mean, a lot of ink has been spilled, but I think that Biden kind of came up in a time when Israel's politics weren't what they were, when, even once he was chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, there were like a few settlements in the West Bank. There was just this tide shifting in Israel politically, but he remembers a time before. And I mean, you, me, and Kamala Harris are all about the same age, so we sort of straddle that generationally, having seen a more left-leaning and a more an Israel that wasn't kind of making these kinds of incursions into the West Bank and Gaza as much, and the sort of Netanyahu rise and the sort of radicalization of Israeli right and politically just in general. I mean, there's really not an Israeli left anymore.
You make a strong point here. It's one that I've discussed here and there, but I want to just probe it a bit more with you, given your read of the situation. I think you're right about the fact that there's a generational shift afoot in this country regarding our policy, our longstanding policy in relationship with Israel and the Middle East. Tell me more about what that looks like for you. But I think you're right. It's generational. Joe Biden is stepping off the scene. And I've said 1,000 times, we can discuss this too as we move through this hour, that there's a reckoning coming for the Democratic Party as well. And that would have happened whether he passed the torch or not. But post Joe Biden, there's going to be a serious conversation about the future of the Democratic Party. I've got my thoughts about that. I'm sure you do as well. We'll talk about that as we move through this hour, perhaps. But the focus for the longest time has been on the Republican Party and what Donald Trump has done to essentially implode that party, taking it over with his MAGA strategy. So there's been all kind of dialogue about what happens to the RNC post Donald Trump. Well, both of these guys, neither of these guys, I should say, are spring chickens, Trump or Biden. And so when Trump's off the scene, whenever that happens, hopefully sooner than later, but whenever he's off the scene, there's going to be a reckoning within the RNC, a sort of come to Jesus meeting. The same thing is going to happen in the Democratic Party, even though the torch has now been passed to Kamala Harris, particularly if she doesn't win this election. But I think on Israel, on our policy there, you're absolutely right, that there's a generational shift that's underway, and I sense that our longstanding policy with them is going to shift. The question is, how do you see it shifting?
You know, I think it's it will not shift overnight. Okay. I don't think, and I think that would be the case even if by some stretch of the imagination, you know, someone even more to the left than Kamala Harris were to take office right now. Mm-hmm. For a lot of reasons. I mean, Congress ultimately controls or has a lot to say about the policy, and you know, and I think right now in Congress there is still an alliance of Republicans who want to support Israel for, you know, a whole bunch of reasons, but just more hawkish in general, mm-hmm. more militaristic in general. And then, you know, people in the democratic institutions who have a long-standing ties to Israel and to the Jewish community. And even though there's, you know, certainly a lot of upheaval within the Jewish community about what their stance, and it's by no means a monolithic opinion there, it's still, you know, it's still deeply personal and deeply held, and I think that those are just feelings and policies that are going to take a long time to work through. In some ways, I think honestly, the reckoning is going to come when Netanyahu is pushed out, and like Donald Trump, he is taking policies and trying to stay in office so that he won't go to jail for totally other reasons. And that means that he has been undermining peace efforts, both by these sort of assassination plays on leaders of Hamas, mm-hmm. by undermining the peace talks. Hamas hasn't always been a good actor there either, but there's no doubt that Bibi Netanyahu personally, and certainly the even more far right-wing parts of his government, do not want there to be peace. Bibi for both ideological reasons and does not want to go to jail. Yep, no, for ideological reasons and personal reasons. I take your point, and you couldn't be more right about that part, Clara. As you're talking, I'm thinking about the last woman who was able to achieve the status of Democratic Party nominee. That would be, of course, Hillary Rodham Clinton. And because she had prior been Secretary of State, we had a really good idea of where she stood on foreign policy. And as you'll recall, there were concerns that she was far more hawk than dove. And there was great debate about that. On domestic issues, many of us thought that Hillary Clinton was in the right place. On foreign policy issues, it was clear to me and others, and she's my friend, but she was to me and for many others much more hawk than dove. This is one of the issues with Kamala Harris that is going to get unpacked between now and November, because she has not been Secretary of State, because she was in fact VP and not the president. We really don't know where she fits, and I'm trying to figure that out myself. But what's your read of whether Kamala Harris as president would be more hawkish or more dovish? You know, I think so much of that is shaped by individual circumstances. If we can kind of go back to Hillary, I think I would just say two things about her being a hawk. One is that she was senator of New York, and New Yorkers obviously felt 9/11 even more than the rest of the country, and you know, the politics of that state in particular then were part of that dialogue about Hillary's viewpoints. Another thing, which Kamala, you know, so far has not had to face, but maybe she will, is that there was so much talk about Hillary not being tough enough, right? As a woman, it's just always hard to rise to those levels of power in anything, but certainly in politics, and walking that line between someone who can prove that they'll be as tough as a man while not being seen as a word that I probably can't even say on AM radio. So, you know, it is And I think that I just want to stipulate that as someone who's old
Sure.
enough to have seen kind of the Hillary thing play out, that those were also factors at play. Certainly Kamala Harris, I think, coming from California, an incredibly multiracial state, and an incredibly international state, I think comes into this with a sort of nuanced generationally, racially, and demographically that, maybe someone who comes from Rhode Island and is 20 years older doesn't necessarily have, no matter how long they've been serving in Congress. So I think there's a piece of that. But, we don't know that much because she was only in the Senate for a short time. And, as VP, you're dispatched to do all kinds of things. So she certainly met all foreign leaders and traveled around the world and participated in important things, but as a sort of spokesperson for the administration. So, it's a little bit of a black box, to be honest.
No, it is a black box, and that's why I said between now and November, we'd better figure out, all of us, as we are exuberant about her campaign, we'd better figure out where she stands on this issue of hawk versus dove. I remind people all the time that even when you like candidates, let me just get on my soapbox for a second, from the black box to the soapbox. I remind people that Dr. King had what he called the triple threat facing our democracy. Ironically, the triple threat that King spoke of then still exists today: racism, poverty, and militarism. This is just Tavis talking. Whenever I consider who I'm going to vote for, particularly at the federal level, certainly for president, I grade them on a Kingian scorecard. That's just me. You do it your way. But I grade everybody running for president on a Kingian scorecard. For me, the question is this. The central question, the penultimate question is this: what is your relationship to the legacy of Martin King before I get to whether or not I'm going to vote for you? So for me, it's where do you stand on racism, on poverty, and on militarism? We could add to that list climate change and other things that are now serious threats to the future, not just of our democracy, but indeed of our planet. But I start with that Kingian scorecard: racism, poverty, militarism. And in that regard, there are questions to be asked of Kamala Harris in all three of those areas, obviously, as there are for Donald Trump and anybody else. But on the militarism question, I'm still in a gray area. So you mentioned the black box. It ain't black for me. It's gray. I'm not sure I know where she stands on these military issues, but it's important for all of us to figure that out between now and November, given all that's happening in these hot spots around the globe, particularly in the Middle East, and I just don't know. Here's what I also wrestle with and struggle with. Hillary Clinton was, in fact, Secretary of State, and there were still questions about whether or not America was ready for a woman to be commander-in-chief. So for all of our enthusiasm, once again, about Kamala as the next president of these United States, what's your view? I mean, I'm not a woman, you are. What's your view on whether or not America is ready for a woman, not as president, but that president is also, that woman is also commander-in-chief? Your thoughts on that part, Clara?
I think this is one of the fears that the left and the Democratic Party has had before Clinton threw out the sort of pondering of Kamala Harris. I personally feel, yes, she's ready to do the job and that women can do that job or any job a man can do.
Sure.
But will ordinary voters who are on the fence, be able to get over that sort of innate sexism or that innate feeling that they don't want women to be tough in that particular kind of way? It's going to be fascinating to see. I think the numbers so far, what we can tell with the polling, it tends to look good. There was an interesting analysis that came out last night from, I think, Harry Etten at CNN, looking at the polling, and actually Kamala seems to be cutting into white working class support for Trump. He certainly has it more than she does still, but he's cut that margin in half. Like, she's back to or even better than Joe Biden 2020 numbers with white working class voters. So does that signal that at least, white working class women and maybe some men are not going to think a woman can't do this job or more for Harris for other reasons in ways that quell those fears. Hard to know.
Yeah. That commander, it is hard to know, but that commander-in-chief title specifically is one that trips people up. It shouldn't, but it does, and I take your point. When we come forward, as I mentioned earlier, Clara Jeffrey, of course, is editor-in-chief of Mother Jones and the Center for Investigative Reporting. To say that Mother Jones is a progressive magazine, a progressive publication, would be the understatement of all understatements. And so my question is, how are progressives facing this existential threat that we face, that we are confronted with right now? We'll talk about that and a great deal more when we come forward with Clara Jeffrey on Tavis Smiley.
For all the freedom-loving folk, this is Tavis Smiley.
I feel like freedom.
Paid for by government.com. Did you know the United States Mint has issued a new Morgan silver dollar coin in proof condition for the first time? Not only that, they are also minted in 99.9% pure silver for the first time ever in history. Coin experts are calling this an amazing opportunity for anyone that knows the enduring popularity of Morgans. But you must hurry. Only 400,000 of these legal tender silver dollars were issued. These first ever Morgan silver dollars are brand new with stunning mirror-like finish, minted by the iconic San Francisco Mint. Call now and you're guaranteed a new first ever 99.9% pure silver proof Morgan dollar. To learn more, call 1-800-973-9717. If you order now, you will receive a free coin collector bonus pack, a $25 value, free with every order. Call 1-800-973-9717 now to secure your new Morgan silver dollars before they are gone. That's 1-800-973-9717.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. The judge who oversaw Donald Trump's criminal trial in New York City is declining the former president's request to recuse himself from the case. It's the third time Judge Juan Merchan has rejected Trump's demands that he step aside. A Minnesota state trooper accused of killing an African-American motorist last summer during a traffic stop is back at work. Ryan Londrigan is back on the job in Golden Valley. He originally was charged with shooting and killing Ricky Cobb II. The USDA will expand testing for bird flu in beef entering the nation's food supply. The decision comes as almost 200 herds of dairy cattle have contracted bird flu since March. USDA officials said American beef and dairy products are still safe to consume. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com. At Blindster, we offer custom-made faux wood and real wood blinds and shutters, cellular shades, Roman shades, bamboo shades, exterior shades, and more, all at factory direct prices. Don't pay too much for new blinds. Go to Blindster.com.
Is this the time? This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Colin Kaepernick still wants to play in the NFL. In an interview with Sky Sports, a network based in London, the celebrated and vilified quarterback said he can still help a team win a championship. Kaepernick, now 36, hasn't played in 7 years. He was essentially blackballed by the NFL for kneeling during the national anthem in 2016 to protest social injustices in America. New Chargers coach Jim Harbaugh is the one NFL coach who might be willing to talk to his owner about giving Kaepernick a chance. Chargers owner Dean Spanos would have the final say. When Harbaugh was coaching the 49ers, Kaepernick was his starting quarterback for 2 seasons. Kaepernick led the 49ers to the Super Bowl in 2013 and the NFC title game in 2014. Harbaugh and Kaepernick have kept in touch. Last year, Harbaugh invited Kaepernick to the University of Michigan spring game and named him an honorary captain. Stay tuned on this situation. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, a.k.a. the voice of reason, encouraging you to join me weekdays from 7 to 9 p.m. for the world's most intriguing relationship radio roundtable. Every night, I facilitate and encourage our loyal listeners to participate in the most engaging relationship discussions you'll hear anywhere. So make it a point to rendezvous with me, Zoe Williams, the voice of reason, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Trust me, your relationships will never be the same. The VOR is on fire tonight.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. This is KBLA Talk 1580, home of the 2024 Climate Justice Campaign.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com. At Blindster, we offer custom-made faux wood and real wood blinds and shutters, cellular shades, Roman shades, bamboo shades, exterior shades, and more, all at factory direct prices. Don't pay too much for new blinds. Go to Blindster.com.
Welcome to Chicago.
A new chapter in black political history will soon be written in Chicago at the Democratic National Convention. KBLA Talk 1580 will be the only talk station in LA with 5 shows broadcasting live from the DNC in Chicago, August 19th through the 23rd. Dominic DePrima, Nicolai Corte, Ariva Martin, Adrian Shropshire, and Tavis Smiley will all be in Chicago bringing the convention to you like no other talk station in Southern California for the critical issues and conversations that matter most to you. Keep it locked to KBLA Talk 1580. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got Kamala covered.
What's up? I'm Miles.
Hey, and I'm Jara.
And a little thing we love about the Chick-fil-A Maple Pepper Bacon Sandwich is how the flavors come together. First, I taste the smoky grilled chicken, then the pepper bacon with that maple bun, added with the sweet heat and the pickles.
I'm really sold on the pickle. It meets you in the middle with the sweetness and the heat.
It's spice-tastic.
Yum-licious.
Flavoristic.
The sandwich of the summer. The Maple Pepper Bacon Sandwich.
Order the Maple Pepper Bacon Sandwich on the Chick-fil-A app today. Available for a limited time. Real guests paid for their testimonials.
Sometimes he fails at fitting in, but we're okay with that. You're inside the Tavis Smiley Show.
Indeed you are, and I'm glad about it. Our guest in this first hour is Clara Jeffrey. She is the editor-in-chief of Mother Jones. Love that magazine. Read it all the time. Mother Jones and the Center for Investigative Reporting. She is also the recipient of a major PEN Award for editing, and so we're honored to have Clara Jeffrey on this program in this hour. I was saying a moment ago, Clara, that progressives are having an interesting time these days. That's one word for it. We talked earlier about how Ilhan Omar survived her scare in Minneapolis yesterday, but Jamal Bowman went down in New York and Cori Bush went down in St. Louis. Bernie Sanders and AOC and many other progressives lined up behind Joe Biden pretty immediately, and now they've lined up behind Kamala Harris rather immediately. And so there is this question about who progressives are these days and what the agenda is and where they are headed. And there is no publication that is more progressive. There are a few others I read all the time than Mother Jones. And so I say all that to ask how progressives are facing this existential threat that we face on any number of fronts. Donald Trump is just one of them.
You know, I think that AOC pretty much nailed this when she said that what is the administration that you that you think you have the best opportunity to organize under? Mm-hmm. And so even if people who are further to the left than Harris, I think broadly speaking, I think there's some carve-outs for Gaza protesters and so forth, which we can get to. But I think broadly speaking, that progressives understand the threat that Donald Trump poses to every issue that they care about. It's just, you know, this isn't a partisan issue. It isn't a where are you on the political spectrum issue. It's really a decision between the rule of law and the ability to organize, to not be rounded up and arrested, to not be, to not have disproportionate sentences or worse thrown at people for just expressing their mind. So, the people that I talk to, sometimes grudgingly, generally accept that. I do think that folks who are at the forefront of the Gaza issue, for a variety of reasons, one of them is that they're young and they're maybe not as battle hardened as the rest of us, and sort of understand the give and take between what people can say publicly when they're running a campaign and what they might do, or just how decisions are made, that it's not just one person's ability to change it on a dime. are less patient with that kind of political analysis. But I think that's another thing that we're going to see is can Harris do enough to assuage enough of the Gaza and youth voters in the right districts and states to come out on top.
Yep. For those who don't read Mother Jones as often as I do, what has Mother Jones been saying about these independent candidates? Speaking of progressives, there's Cornel West, there's Jill Stein. You can't put RFK Jr. in that category. Not that you ever could. You certainly can't these days. I'm not sure where he stands on anything. He's bouncing all over the place. That's another conversation for another time. But certainly Cornel West has been consistent. Jill Stein has been consistent. What's Mother Jones been saying about these independents? Because while people want to frame this as a binary race, it really isn't. That's just the way we are conditioned in this country. But there are others who are running. What's Mother Jones saying about West and Stein, for example?
I would say that our kind of analysis of the role of third-party candidates in this race is that they are spoilers, and that that protest votes have to be really carefully thought through. Like, what are you protesting, and what is the outcome that you actually want, and to really consider the power of your vote. Now, people obviously have the right to do that in any number of ways, and a protest vote in a reliably blue district would be different than one in a swing district or swing state. But I don't personally think that West or Stein are themselves probably going to be too much of a factor. RFK is more of a moving target. Mm-hmm. He's also just such a wacky and all over the place candidate. I think this is really a matter of ego as much as any particular issue. I mean, yeah, he's been anti-vax for years, but in every other respect, he's just all over the map, and is really making weird alliances, and I think is a really unsettling egotist, frankly.
Yeah, I wouldn't argue that point about the egotist part, and I've liked RFK Jr. over the years, and of late he's been concerning me in a variety of ways. Speaking of concerning me, and I'm doing this respectfully and lovingly, but I want to push back on you on two words that you used, and my audience will not be surprised by this. It ain't the first or last time I will do this. As I said earlier, I regard Mother Jones as a rather progressive magazine, and yet I don't think the term spoiler or protest vote is consistent with progressive ideology. Let me give you my point of view, and I want to hear yours. I don't regard Cornel West or Jill Stein as spoilers. Now, you can believe that they have no chance in Hades of winning the election, and I wouldn't necessarily argue on that. There's no data that I've seen that suggests to me that Cornel West is going to be president of the United States. There's no data that I've seen that Jill Stein is going to be president of the United States. I'm not arguing that. But I do think that words matter, and that we're in the word business. And to use that term spoiler just troubles me, because they have a right to run. Americans ought to have choices. Those choices ought not to be binary. And when Republicans beat Democrats, Democrats don't call them spoilers. When Democrats beat Republicans, they don't call them spoilers. It's only when we talk about third-party candidates that we call them spoilers, which suggests to me that we have bought into this binary, that we are not creatively thinking, that we're not being imaginative about the way we see our democracy. Other countries have multiple choices. We're stuck with these two. When it was just Biden and Trump, nobody wanted that. Kamala has infused new energy, no question about it, but I get trouble when I hear progressives use terms like spoiler and protest vote. It's not a protest vote. If I vote for Cornel West, it is not a protest vote. If I vote for Jill Stein, it is not a protest vote. I believe that they are the best candidates. Why do we frame that as a protest vote? That's just my point of view. I want to hear yours. That's one reason why I'm raising it, is because you went there first. But I'm always fascinated by the way people think and process things. You're the editor-in-chief of the magazine, so I just want to understand your thinking We need to use that terminology. I'm watching my clock. If I let you start talking now, I got to cut you off in 30 seconds. That would not be fair, given what I've just said. I want to give you a chance to respond in a robust a way as you want about the term spoiler and protest vote. She is the editor-in-chief of Mother Jones Magazine. Her name is Clara Jeffrey. We'll hear her response to my critique when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
From Leimert Park with love, this is Tavis Smiley.
We asked seniors how to prevent Medicare scams.
My best advice, if you get a phone call, do not talk to the person. These people are well-trained. Don't talk to them.
They don't know me. They're just trying to scam me.
Don't be fooled. Hang up. Just hang up.
Never give out your Medicare number.
They're going to get your number to put in a false claim.
If I get a call from someone, I don't pick up the phone. And should I pick up the phone and they ask for information, then I hang up.
How do you detect Medicare fraud?
Just like I check my credit card statements, I check my Medicare statements monthly.
Scammers can get a hold of your number, order medical devices through your account, and you're not even going to know about it if you don't look at your statement.
Check your statement every month.
If you get your statement and you see something that you know you did not have done, you report it.
Call your senior Medicare Patrol.
To report Medicare fraud, call the Senior Medicare Patrol at 855-613-7080.
Tavis is like George and Wheezy. He's moving on up. Last year, Tavis was number 45 on the Talkers Magazine list of the 100 most important radio talk show hosts in America. Wait for it. Wait for it. The 2024 list was recently released, and Tavis has jumped to number 33 on the list of the nation's most important talkers, making him the highest-ranked African-American on the coveted roster. Congratulations to Tavis Smiley from all of us at KBLA Talk 1580. We've got you black.
We're with Bridget, whose husband won't be home for months, and whose daughter is due any day. We're with Mike, who's leaving home to protect his family and yours. We're with all service members and their families who need community, connection, and maybe a bit of magic. Are you with them? Learn more at uso.org today.
So the thing no one tells you about periods is that your flow changes every day, and so should your tampon size. Tampax has 5 absorbencies to match your changing flow. If it's uncomfortable to remove, go down a size. If it leaks, go up a size. And only Tampax has a leak guard braid to help give you up to 100% leak and odor-free protection. All-day comfort and protection for up to 8 hours for under $5 a month. Based on average U.S. consumer usage at manufacturer's suggested price, however, pricing is at the sole discretion of the retailer, excludes 8-count pack.
Freedom is an endless meeting, so let's get back to it with Tavis Smiley.
Back to it, Clara Jeffrey, editor-in-chief of Mother Jones Magazine and the Center for Investigative Reporting. All right, you heard my take, Clara. Just pushing back because those terms always get my attention. So the terms spoiler and protest vote, unpack your use of those terms for me.
I guess what I would say is that I think that in this election, more than any in our lifetime, but we've certainly seen this happen a bit before with the, sort of Nader, Bush v. Gore issue. Mm-hmm. But people just really need to think about being strategic with their vote. Everybody has a right, absolutely, to vote however they want, and every candidate has a right to run under whatever flag that they want. At the same time, I think that it is important for people to think about how to be strategic with their vote to get the future that they think is going to best serve their needs, or as AOC put it, is the best petri dish in which to create the world that you want. And so when it comes to the sort of binary two-party system, I agree that's for a whole bunch of complicated electoral issues, as you know, about why we're different than a more parliamentary system in other countries. Sure. But we can organize for changing that on the local level, and that does actually work. I mean, for example, the Working Families Party in New York State, does really matter as a third party. They often align with the Democrats, but not always. and they're a powerful institution for change. And we can also organize for things like ranked choice voting or electoral college reform or other ways to reform the system, which I completely agree is sclerotic and unsatisfying on a bunch of levels. But that's played against in swing states and swing districts, whether or not by expressing your ideal candidate, you're going to help get the candidate you absolutely do not want to win.
I guess what concerns me is that if you listen to AOC, who I like, if you listen to Bernie Sanders, who I like even more, and you watch how quick they were to endorse Joe Biden, how quick they were to get behind Kamala Harris, and I'm not mad at anybody for their own choices. I'm just raising a question about those who happen to be true, unapologetic progressives. What I hear you saying, what I hear others saying, is that we should just forever assume and just perennially expect that our issues will always be subsumed within the Democratic Party when AOC knows and Bernie knows and Clara Jeffrey knows and Tavis Smiley knows that the Democratic Party is never going to raise to the top of its agenda progressive issues and progressive causes for all kinds of political reasons. And I guess I just get concerned.
Well, I would push back a little bit on that. I mean, when Bernie Sanders says Joe Biden's been the most progressive his administration has been amongst the most progressive, like nobody is under any illusions that Joe Biden himself emerged, from the womb as a diehard progressive himself. But has he fought for working people and for unions' right to organize? Yes. Has he done more to further climate goals than any previous administration? Yes. I mean, there's a whole bunch of, and that's in part because Bernie Sanders, AOC, and a whole bunch of, more Democrats were pushing for that and wanted it. And, and so that's what happened. I think it's very much it's an age-old debate, and I think both are needed. Do you push from the outside or do you push from the inside, right? I mean, both are needed to make change, and change does not happen overnight. It rarely does, absent a total revolution, and so things evolve, and I think the Democratic Party broadly has evolved on a lot of issues in the last, years, in part a response to Trump, but in part because they got the power to kind of get things through that they wanted to get through. Not everything, certainly wanted the working families tax credits and more, some of the stuff that I think Harris is speaking out most about, the sort of how do we help working class families? How do we help, poor people get the sort of job security, wages, and et cetera that they need? That's all part of the mix.
Let me confess, what you're hearing from me, and let me just be transparent about it, as is my way. I've been a registered Democrat since I first registered to vote. I have never changed my party registration. And yet, the more chronologically gifted I become, the more disturbed I am by the binary choices I have. I'm just going to give it to you straight, no chaser. I am sick and tired, like Fannie Lou Hamer, sick and tired of being sick and tired about these binary choices that we have in this country. But having said that, the best phrase I've heard all day today comes from Clara Jeffrey. I love that line. More democratic Democrats. It's a great line. More democratic Democrats. I'm stealing that. More with Clara Jeffrey when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
Helping to stretch your moral and political imagination. This is Tavis Smiley.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
You know where you want to go in life, and City National Bank can help. City National knows the dedication it takes to build your vision for the future into a reality, and our team is here for you. We have a wide range of options to help, from personal savings accounts to interest-bearing money market savings accounts and more, all designed to help you get where you want to go. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Learn more at cnb.com. City National Bank is a subsidiary of Royal Bank of Canada. Member FDIC.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminding you that we keep us safe. Pro Football Hall of Famer and urban peace pioneer Jim Brown believed in just that. So he founded the Amera I Can Foundation for Social Change in 1988, focusing on at-risk and high-risk youth in underserved schools and juvenile detention facilities, as well as adult incarceration and reentry initiatives. The core of the Amera I Can program is its 15-chapter life skills curriculum. Mastery of these skills allows individuals to meet their academic potential, conform their behavior to acceptable societal standards, and improve the quality of their lives by equipping them with what they need to confidently and successfully contribute to society. Today, the foundation is led by its president, Monique Brown, who has been actively involved in the organization for more than 25 years. The Amera I Can Foundation continues its work in memory of its founder, actor, philanthropist, and NFL legend Jim Brown. To get involved or make a donation, please visit AmeriICanCommunity.partners. That's AmeriICanCommunity.partners. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
My mom has taken up going to the park to practice yoga.
My dad's going to a club, but not a book club, a salsa club.
Finding new hobbies comes with age.
My mom has started getting lost and not knowing where she's going.
Becoming lost or disoriented doesn't. Confusion with time or place may be a sign of Alzheimer's. An early diagnosis can help improve the quality of life for your loved one. Learn the warning signs of Alzheimer's at 10signs.org. Brought to you by the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
Febreze. So my home is also my office. And before I can focus, every room's gotta be clean. That means tidying up, then spraying my Febreze Air Mist. Ooh, that's fresh. Febreze Air Mist scents are all high quality. They fight any weird funk, and they give my air an instant boost of freshness. So not only does my home smell good, I feel good too. After I Febreze, it's time to start my day.
Breathe happy, Febreze, la 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 la.
Sometimes he fails at fitting in, but we're okay with that. You're inside the Tavis Smiley Show.
Yeah, there's an appropriate promo. Sometimes he fails at fitting in. I know that. I don't fit in so well all the time. Wish I could apologize for that, but I can't. I was just talking a moment ago to Clara Jeffrey about the older I get, the more I'm troubled by these binary choices I'm often forced to choose from in these elections. That's true locally, regionally, statewide, so certainly at the federal level. And if you're being honest, you are too. Just keep it real. We get sick of these choices that we have, or the lack of choices that we have. That's as real as rain. And one of the reasons I feel that way, here's a quick Exhibit A in the 3 minutes I have left with Clara Jeffrey. Democrats have not been nearly as aggressive or as progressive as they need to be on a living wage for American workers. I told you earlier, I vote for everybody based on a Kingian lens, a Kingian frame. Racism, poverty, and militarism. So the Democrats are not being as progressive as they ought to be, I believe. And yet Donald Trump is completely off the rails. You all saw, you heard Donald Trump suggesting that workers who threaten to strike ought to be fired. That's what he said to Elon Musk in this conversation they had. The UAW, our friend Sean Fain, just a guest on this program just days ago. Sean Fain and UAW yesterday filed federal labor charges with the National Labor Relations Board against Donald Trump and Elon Musk for publicly applauding that practice of firing employees who threaten to strike. Your final comment on that in the 90 seconds I have left, Clara Jeffrey.
Yeah, I would just say that one of the most important things that people can do to get a variety of candidates is to have variety in their media. Obviously, your listeners have this great independent station, KBLA, that you've been so important to get up and going in its new format, and it's just great. And I would say, please look out for nonprofit progressive media like Mother Jones, like Reveal, our radio show that's on public radio stations all over the country, including in LA, hosted by the great Al Letson. diversity of viewpoints, diversity of perspectives, not just hearing from your own choir.
That's right.
I think is one of the most important things you can do. And, politicians are always going to disappoint us on some level, right? I mean, they're humans. We all disappoint each other.
Yeah.
But I think when we sort of get a broader view and really kind of understand the stakes and all the complexities from great media like you're serving up, Tavis, that's what people can really do to kind of expand their horizon.
No, I appreciate that. Speaking of great media, I repeat what I said earlier. My push notwithstanding, that's my job, to push our guests to get the best out of them. I'm a huge fan of Mother Jones, and you should be too if you aren't. Clara Jeffries, editor-in-chief of Mother Jones and the Center for Investigative Reporting. Clara, will do it again. Thanks for your insights. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.
Good to have you on this program. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. The judge who oversaw Donald Trump's criminal trial in New York City is declining the former president's request to recuse himself from the case. It's the third time Judge Juan Merchan has rejected Trump's demands that he step aside. A Minnesota state trooper accused of killing an African-American motorist last summer during a traffic stop is back at work. Ryan Londrigan is back on the job in Golden Valley. He originally was charged with shooting and killing Ricky Cobb II. The USDA will expand testing for bird flu in beef. The news source, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.